So I just watched a documentary on orphanages in is it Eastern Russia? No, it's actually Western Russia. Anyways, that all doesn't matter. So I've seen a documentary on mentally handicapped, and I don't know the correct term. It doesn't matter. Um, and so and this boy had a very challenging story. He had a very, you could say, he had a very sad story because he had the chance to be adopted by a loving family in Ireland, and then he stayed with them for over a year, but then um, they weren't allowed to adopt him. They wanted to give him a home, and he had to go back into the institution, and there are many such institutions for handicapped children and adults in, I mean, of course, everywhere in the world, but some places in the world it's harsher. There are harsher conditions for them. And watching this really touched my heart, and the question came up. So I want to ask my higher self. The question comes up because I understand how everything that shows up in my life, and this applies to most, what I get is that this applies to most people, um, is how everything that shows up in my life is some kind of it's a projection, it's a reflection, it is soul contract, it is soul agreement, because now I also learned that in the new earth, the higher dimension that we have moved into, it's no more with contracts. It's agreements, and they happen on the fly. It's moment to moment. It's not. It goes much faster. Everything after the quickening. You know, in the higher dimension, in the fifth dimension, which is where the earth is already at, as I keep hearing, and as I also understand, that doesn't mean that we are all completely embodied in fifth dimension yet. That is a process. It is like the structure of the earth, the new grid is already in place, and we're catching up. Also, we have to, we will come more and more to understand and to understand, because we recognize there's a remembering. It's not just on the understanding, not just on the mental level anymore, that because we recognize ourselves in the structure, because we have come to, as a fifth dimension, we are in that perception of unity consciousness, which does not perceive itself at the core as separate from creation. And as I always say, is that whatever is happening to us, it is for awakening and for recognition. And now, you know, of the truth of who we are. And then there are different categories in this. It is like, okay, I'm just going to stop explaining, because I wanted to ask about how is this? What about these beings? Because I cannot speak from the way that I perceive, and that is a principle, operating principle, and working principle for most embodied souls here on earth. It is but it doesn't seem like it's the same for them. For, for these beings, for example, let's take these beings, like let's take mentally handicapped humans, be they children or adults, and then also sometimes, physical handicap can be so strong that it will lead to a life of a very challenging life, depending on where you're born, and also it will have an effect on mental ability to self-reflect as well. But let's not go into the border areas, because then we can also say, well, we're all affected by our childhood imprints and traumas and challenges psychologically, and also physically, and also everything that now has been, from the outside at least, of the structure removed, and it doesn't exist anymore on the level of ascended earth. Well, ascended, it is of course a continuation, but where the earth is stationing in the fifth dimension. Now, we have to remember that reality is a hologram. We have to understand the quantum structure is that it is a projection. And so my question was also, okay, so how is it that if it's a projection, that a being like, for example, this boy who is so innocent and beautiful and just pure love, completely innocent, that he could have a life that is so hard, and where he was where he suffered so much, and the same can be said also, of course, for animals. They're absolutely pure. And how is it then that they have lives where they suffer so tremendously, at the hands of, not just because, let's just say, not just because of a occurring natural disaster, but at the hands of perpetrators as well. Perpetrators or man-made situations that cause suffering. So I wanted to ask now about beings such as this boy, mental and physical, strong physical, what do you call that? Handicapped, I guess I'll just call that. Okay, so I'm gonna go in, call in my higher self now, tune into my column of light, and ask you, my higher self, my team light, ascended masters, to come in, galactic brethren, whoever feels called from my team light, from higher consciousness, to come in and address and speak to this question. Thank you. This is an act of great service. They are actually the ones holding up the mirrors. They are the ones that come in to serve the heart structure. There are many different, innumerously different scenarios, situations that a soul may choose this kind of destiny. This has nothing to do with the notion that you hold of karma, in the sense that it is a punishment. There is no such thing as punishment beyond the 3D, an inverted 3D. There are reactions, there are effects. There are effects of what a soul has experienced in a lifetime. Depending on how far away a soul has come, has fallen into sleep, into duality, away from alignment with Source. When a soul comes to after such an experience, there is oftentimes a long period of healing required, a period of reconciliation. And part of this reconciliation may be for a soul to step into great, great service. For as you know, nothing can break a heart as much as something that you may regret, something that you may have done that you regret, or that you have done that you regret so deeply that it breaks your heart. And to come back into alignment, oftentimes what is very helpful is to choose such a life. That is one availability, that is one scenario. The other scenario is, as we are so infinitely individual, unique, and such a variety of different souls and soul experiences. And some souls, they naturally wish to serve, and their heart structure is already so wide open. They will also step in, not for the purpose of reconciliation, and yet take the same role. For these beings avail the great opportunity for others that are around them, that perceive them, to feel their hearts, they will tug at the heartstrings. They will challenge a closed heart. They will also attract closed hearts around them for precisely this reason. And even when perceiving from the outside, what is seen is injustice, which on the level of the avatar, on the level of the story, is so. And it is sad, and it is heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. And in the grand scheme, the greater scheme of things, you can even remain on the stage of the 3D and the inverted 3D, especially the inverted 3D, because that is where you've been coming from and where this story has played itself out. There, in those places where the heart structure has been damaged through trauma, and there in that structure where there is a lot of callousness, carelessness, because life is so difficult for the people living there, and the people living there have had themselves so many deep, also ancestral, and within their lineage and from their own childhood, traumas, especially to the heart. So there, where they are treated with the least kindness and the least respect, what it seems that there in those areas, this phenomenon, shall we say, phenomenon, appears to be more prolific, of such beings to come about. And oftentimes this also has to do with the traumas being passed on, and then there is also there has been trauma to the land as well. In the case, for example, of Chernobyl, and there have been DNA distorting factors involved. So this allows for such a structure for these souls that choose this path for a certain purpose, out of service, and also for some, on top of that, that this service can be a reconciliation for them. And for others, it is the service, perhaps not for reconciliation, but growth will come out of it regardless. A lot of growth will come out of it. Perhaps to some, it is not even growth to their own heart structure in that sense, but by being of such service, there is also growth in their heart structure. But on a degree that is far greater, because they are already higher vibrational souls, and they come in with yeah, so it's all relative. That part is relative. Not one service is greater than the other, that's for sure. It is just relative. Because some come in whose heart structure is already wide open, and still there is more expansion coming from it. And some come in who wish to also, through this experience a wide open heart, or experience a situation that will help their hearts to open more, and that will help them in compassion for what they didn't have compassion in a former life, that degree that they didn't have compassion in a former life. And they want to be able to embody this compassion. And there are many factors. This is a life in such a body holds a lot of opportunity for a soul. And the services that everyone that comes in touch with them, and especially the closed hearts that are around them and that are also even being attracted, this is also what we see oftentimes in these institutions, is that the people who work there sometimes are especially close-hearted. Somehow they are attracted to that situation. They are wounded themselves. And so you ask, how is it then possible that they receive such behavior, such treatment, even though they themselves are so innocent and good-hearted, have the heart structure open? So then how can they project a closed-hearted experience and such a harsh experience? Okay, go in again more. Ishna hiuru uhan haya suru ukna abar ihar uknu. Parhanuku nayasia toru ukanayashi tiaru u. Where you may, by observing it from the outside, say, but I don't see how hearts have been softened. Now, is that really true? Have you really seen the whole picture? Have you seen the whole life of them? You have maybe seen a portion of it. You may have seen a portion of it where there was perpetrating behavior or closed heart behavior towards them, causing suffering. However, what that is going to do is it will not go unnoticed. Even if for that caption of time space that you look at it, you see, oh, I don't see that person in the I see that person being like behaving really closed-heartedly toward them. I don't see how their heart opened. Yes. However, nothing ever goes unnoticed by the soul. At some level of the soul, where the soul isn't asleep and everything is recorded. And that is what you also call the detox, when the reopening to the soul, the reopening of the heart structure happens. Then everything that the soul has recorded and the emotions, then that were not there as a reaction to what was going on, to what this person was doing, will be observed. And as you know, when one goes against the heart of another, when one is comes from a closed heart, whatever that person, if one inflicts suffering on another, coming from a closed heart, that everything that is being inflicted on another is also being inflicted on self. And it is actually that person acting out unconsciously what is inside of themselves, screaming for their love and attention, and saying, look at me. Look at what you have made me into. And it's like they're almost willing to kill themselves in that sense. They are so angry that they never got the love that they so hungered for. And this is all completely, deeply buried in the unconscious. And everything that is in the unconscious, where there is no self-reflection because there is no sense of true self, there is a complete identification over the separate identity, the false self, and the separate inverted matrix egoic mind. Inverted egoic mind. Or let's just say the egoic mind, where it is based in separation from itself. So the true, that like that seeing that is pure, that is neutral, that is just the observation, is always there. And as there is a remembering, as there is a reawakening to self, and that reawakening is always God awakening in itself in this form, and that is always bound to happen at some point, apart from those that have fallen beyond beyond reconciliation, beyond the reach, so to speak. And then that is like, that goes, that dissolves, that just dissolves back. There is no ascension. That there is, when there's a certain threshold beyond which a reascension isn't possible in the body. And then there is, however, a dissolution. There is a dissolution back to source, but not consciously. That you can call that annihilation or death, but it doesn't truly explain. It is an ending of a particular form, but the consciousness is so asleep it will never wake up to truth. It cannot never wake up to truth again. It has so deformed completely away from itself, and it already is disincorporate. And yeah, so the energy gets reabsorbed into the ocean of light, fully unconsciously. So let's just leave that part at that, to not go into further detail. And let's stay with our the focus on our story, on our question. Yes, so when the reawakening happens, there is a meeting of that love was present, that love was seen, purity can be seen. And that is why the reawakening of a closed heart can be so painful, because everything is felt that has been done during the time of the closed heart. Everything is felt that before it was callous. And the natural, what occurs is that some kind of opening occurs when you meet a being that is pure, that is innocent, that has an open heart. Most of the time. And if it doesn't occur during the incarnation, during a lifetime, then it will occur afterwards when the soul is reconciliating and love is recognized. And what is then also recognized is that the soul that was in that body, how it came out of true compassion. And it came out of compassion for these beings that had their heart closed. And that soul can reflect back to them, look at what you've been through. I came for you because I love you. And I want to help you be able to open your heart again. So you are worthy. And even though the experience for both, you could say, looking at it, and you can always only look from your own eyes, from your own vantage point, looking at it through the lens still of the 3D. And we can even go from the inverted 3D to the organic 3D, because we're definitely already in organic 3D. There are still some inverted 3D, of course, and especially in the structures is still in place. But more and more and more you can see how we are moving into organic 3D in the collective. So another thing that you have now observed is, and witnessed or seen, is also that it avails an opportunity for more and more and more heart opening. You could see how these institutions were held before, and how the culture felt about these beings. And these are cultures that have been they were heavily, like the most heavily affected in in the communistic structure in This was now Belarus, White Russia, as an example. This particular boy came from there, you know, and um, they all have, you know, the heavily communist structures. They all have something in common. They have this platform in common, and how it was before, and then what happened, and then this whole different system came and ruled in this way. And so this is also a very particular challenge of inverted matrix platform for these areas, and for the, of course, the people living in that structure. And there are some areas where it is heavier, you know, where it was stronger than others. So what you, if you look at the bigger picture on the 3D level, on the level of the story, so then you look at the bigger picture, you look at the through over time, the development of it. So you see how, first of all, how the change of this platform of, you know, becoming a communist platform, how that challenged, you know, the whole society, the whole collective, and how it formed, how it developed, and what it developed into, and what the characteristics are. And now when you look at it over time, how it used to be when the little boy was brought, you know, after Chernobyl, was brought to the family in Ireland, how the situation was in that institution then, and how it is now. That is a huge developmental arc right there. That is a beautiful story in itself. And every story that is cathartic, which means that from which, when you follow it as a hero, it transforms you, it expands you, it expands your heart, it expands your mind, and that expands your soul for having experienced it. And this is that kind of platform. So now you know, the difference now is, or what happened in the development, is that it has drastically, it has so tremendously improved, and there are many people from, in this case, from Ireland, many volunteers coming over, working together with the people that are working in the institutions, and just spending time with the children, young adults in these institutions, just spending time, just being there, present with them, and what is really happening there. They don't need to have any type of special training or knowledge. They don't have to have like studied books to prepare them. It really doesn't matter. There's only one thing that matters, and what brought them over there, and that is the heart. And that's all that matters, is the heart sharing, and then they can all sit there together, and it is like a flower that has blossomed, you know, from what was only mud before, and not or just desert maybe. Yeah, just being very placative now, and they're growing a flower with the most beautiful blossom that you could not foresee before. But now when you observe the scene, of the children, the young adults sitting there with the volunteers from a different country. They don't speak the same language. And you see the smiles on the faces. You see the light in the eyes. And you see, looking, also looking at the buildings, looking at the surroundings, looking into the buildings. It's like a day and night of a difference. So much has happened in that time. So from where it started, and then where it has come to today. And this kind of development, this is not coming from from above. This is coming through the inside. This is a slow human development that is coming solely through the heart structure, where the heart has grown into compassion and blossomed in this heart structure sharing, where before there was so much closedness and suffering on the other side. And this could not have happened, see, because it works both ways. It works both ways. This could not have happened to bring so much light into such a place of so much darkness and suffering. Could not have happened without these, let's say, volunteer souls. Without this situation. Without these beings that inspire so much compassion, so much love. Unconditionally. Where culture doesn't matter, language doesn't matter, they can't speak anyways so much, or you don't know what they understand, but it doesn't matter. What matters is the light in the eyes, the love. That's all that matters. And so you can say from the level of the lower dimensional, denser dimensional story that it is a great sacrifice that souls are willing to make, that choose to make this sacrifice. On the level of the soul, it is a choice. It is clearly a choice. It is not seen as a sacrifice. And it is not a punishment. So now we detect again the question in your mind about the quantum structure and the projection. Okay, so let's get into that. Let's get a little bit of light languages coming through. Toro moknaya sototo ishnana arhant kte iaru ukta anidara kietastata. Debre iha hasha satoru irhamhan urhut hatakshtidoru ulla yastari jiknu ur ukna ab ar ihat urruhata chichukutu urruhota jashna arabikia zebra am arhata tutushnuru ukma arkiti astana uruhata tachitutu uru Mea hanu uruhuchnashna uhopakita isti narabikite arruhutuktu uruhopakchititi me iri asturu jaru ulhan ar ikhat urukhan uruk arhastakta ayata urham ankatakun unnum toru yatataya me hadr ur unhoramana al aura an uruhan toru ushtiau toru amakat urikata toshtono jaru uhan urhan uruhat to chichichichichichichichichichi para ya tataya shti nur u baba bakta arham Ayurua patatatata. Jevra ma'arraham an ar ukutto no yotoru utatatata ma'arraham akta arrohuto chochochochochocho. Darraham akto arrahan kita orma no ur ukiatatat. Aresiti arahna ar ukutto chochoto oro ma'ar ma'an ar ab aje tatat orrohoto. Meo suru una hari ia takata anna or uhat ar ma am or uhan or urham an ar akata or rohote chitana yasti dar mi I ar or u par am a tikita ulhan ar ia sakachno ur pekta arhiti dor upaha akit har mo hal ar akito jobro u Teonu ur akta ar jeba ar dor ula nikti ipikatanu ur ukta ama iya sana ri ioru u a to ma ar to jaram I a nu ur u kana yashti dor ma an ar am ur u. Now we just want to bring your attention for a very short moment to what you were when watching this report or this short documentary, so fascinated by this man from Ireland who dedicated his whole life to coming to help these institutions to improve. Now, what was so fascinating about that was how this man was able to do this, and how this man was so of a huge heart structure, and at the same time, so complete 100% compassion, and at the same time 0% judgment. 0% judgment upon the people that worked there, for example. That in the beginning didn't even want to touch the children, that didn't wash the children, and so forth. You know, that were working there and behaving in a certain way, acting in a certain way. There was no judgment. And this is why he was able to be successful. This is why he could come from a different country, from Ireland to Belarus, and work in these institutions with the people. Of course, it won't work otherwise. It is the people that make up. It's not so much the buildings, the atmosphere, the situation. The buildings are secondary, as you know, even though they have of course, they have a very large impact. But the larger impact is, of course, the human consciousness, the human behavior. And why he was able to work with them, why did they allow him in? And why was it possible to improve and to make all of these changes? Only because he had zero judgment. And it wasn't that he pretended not to have judgment. You could feel that. You could feel it in his vibration. The magnetism in his vibration. Because as he had compassion, of course, for the children, he also had compassion for the caretakers, the staff, and the head of the institution. And it took a special soul to do that. So we wanted to just point that, bring that is also a factor, that is also a playing An avatar on the field. Yes. So the quantum structure. Let's go to the quantum structure and the projection. Okay, this may be a little bit difficult now to bring into words because we have never actually brought this through. So we're going to keep it very, very base and simple because your mind hasn't been prepared for the finer, say the more detailed mechanics of it. And that is fine. You will find your own way of expressing this. So there is the soul's intention, there is the soul's purpose. When the soul is in charge, when it comes in, when it goes out. And the projection goes through the structure of the heart, and then of course, when the heart is closed, that means that the soul energy, that is the creative energy, moves through the separation mind, because in the heart there is unity consciousness. That is the oneness with the soul. When you move out of that duality to the degree where you know you are more than just your physical body and the identity that you took on in the physical body. You know there is more to you, and you know that life didn't start with your birth and it doesn't end with your death. That is already enough to be like, to have that soul stream as a part, to have access to that, consciously access to that. And to have access to the soul is through the heart structure. So a closed heart is like it hijacks, it derails, it comes out of alignment with source code, with source light, with source energy. It comes into more and more dissonance with the harmony with the source that the soul is in naturally, at the level of awareness, awakeness to itself. A soul knows where it is awake to itself. It is a God spark. It is a drop of the ocean. And the entire ocean is, in the holographic universe, is, the entire ocean is held within that drop. That is the holographic nature of existence, of light, of form. Yes, and so by a closed heart, it flows, that energy goes and powers the egoic mind at that level. So in this structure, it was the inverted matrix structure. So it is that implant of egoic mind that is holding the that is, it's like it holds the avatar structure to play within that playing field of the inverted 3D in place. It is that etheric fourth dimensional implant that has this effect of, that is what we also call the conditioned mind, that has been conditioned here into this paradigm from birth on, paradigm that we were born into. And the paradigm that we were born into, no matter what, even if we are born on a paradisical island to paradisical parents, they were still living within the collective structure. There's some shared vibration there of the paradigm of that inverted matrix system that we have left, or we're coming out of, we're waking up from now. The awakening is happening in here, and it's also happening out there as a reflection of that. And so then the creative energy from the soul gets projected not through the heart, and the soul, so to speak, the aligned mind, the soul mind, the awakened mind, the unity mind, the observing mind, the neutral mind. However, that doesn't mean that we don't have emotions, but the neutral mind is the one that is holding the space for the emotions. It is not identified with it. And the identification with the emotions doesn't necessarily already mean the inverted matrix 3D egoic mind. There's also the organic 3D egoic mind. And then there's the 4D egoic mind. And then there's the 5D egoic mind. But that one, these we are not talking about, because these are platforms that, and they can also be implants. I'm not so sure, I wouldn't put that into words like that right now. But they are also a part of our structure, of our higher anatomy structure, for sure. However, they are in a different consciousness. And they are completely different than the inverted 3D where we are coming from. And it is in the inverted 3D that the suffering is taking place. And in the organic 3D, there can still be suffering, but it has also a different flavor to it. It's no longer the inversion. That has a different flavor. So the projection goes through the heart, and the more the heart is closed, the more it goes into duality, the more it goes into through the egoic mind, the projection. And at the same time, this is all happening from soul agreement, and as it used to be, soul contracts. Because it could be seen what kind of structure is this platform going to hold for me, and is this vessel going to hold for me? And these vessels have been chosen, and these platforms and these situations have been chosen for a very particular reason, to have a very particular experience. And now we won't even we won't go to the next obvious question, which is, well, what about the closed-hearted ones that create all this so much suffering, and that even have created the inverted matrix? What about them? We're not going to tap in. That's like a whole other subject that we've tapped into oftentimes on our way of explaining other concepts, bringing forth other innerstandings. We have tapped into that all along, but we're not going to tap into that now. We're going to stay here. So the projection comes from the higher self. It comes from that soul aspect that chose to play this role. And so that on the level of the human being, these children, these beings, these humans, these adults have experienced suffering that has been known that this is going to be the experience. And that doesn't, relativate the suffering. It doesn't make it less suffering. Just because the soul has chosen it. You would know that so well. But here, the clear purpose is heart opening, bringing that forth, inspiring that in the world, in others, in those places where it has been so hardened, that have been so traumatized. And pulling forth, you could say, because light will pull forth. Oh, yeah, this is also true. Light will pull forth the shadow, and light will oftentimes make, therefore, people act in their worst version, will show the worst version of themselves, because it brings that darkness up onto the surface. And before there can be any kind of recognition, that is exactly what happens in the process, is that this worst version of a person gets expressed, so that there is the possibility of within that person to have some kind of reflection. There is somewhere within them that is being recorded, their worst version, and there is on some level of meeting themselves within themselves, there is that guilt, or it's maybe not the right word, remorse, regret. There is that pain and that suffering also, that this is being done. But there are levels and levels of pain between it before there is that, very callous, very cold, very closed-hearted surface that is being expressed completely unconsciously. Completely unconsciously. Because consciousness means, like when I say consciousness, the awareness of oneself is one, and one goes hand in hand with the heart structure. So where there is consciousness, there is also an open heart, in other words. And that means awake consciousness, aware consciousness. This aware, pure awareness, that is that neutrality, that neutral place where the soul comes and observes all of this, does not judge. But on the way there, as we said with the detoxing, on the way closer to it, you will feel the discrepancy to who you really are, and you will feel the pain you have inflicted on the others, and you will feel painful about having done that. And all of this pain has to be felt to come back into reconciliation. And for some, in order to do this, and in order to then fully embody again a reconciled being, a being that is in alignment again with an open heart structure, after the heart structure has been closed so much, it is a life on the other side of the on the other side of the coin. Can you say that? Can you say that on the other side of this meeting? So you meet the closed heart structure meets the open heart structure, and the open heart structure um, inspires compassion, and compassion is like one of the highest vibrating frequencies, which will pull forth the darkest in the other, so that will be expressed. So there is way in the back somewhere the opportunity within the other to reflect upon, to see, to see, what they are doing, even when that is not conscious within their lifetime. It is being recorded, and that is the opportunity for then opening up and coming back into alignment, and then again. Yeah. And after having lived the other side of it, when those souls come back into, from the dream, wake up through the dream, oftentimes after leaving the body, there has been so much reconciliation taken place, so much reconciliation, so much being able to um, integrate that, what they were before, and have the space within them to embrace everything they were, even embrace that lifetime where they were the perpetrator, and coming from that closed heart within themselves. And any closed heart, no one, no soul comes in, or no soul is born with a closed heart structure. That is always experience of some kind of distortive, traumatized experience, where then illusion is created of separation. So, and now you linger again. Your mind sees those images of what it is like today, and you may even be sad if you would just see the images of what it is like today. But if you see them in front, or as the contrast to the background of where it started, where it came from, the development that it made, it is incredible. It carries incredible beauty. It carries incredible beauty because it is a story of such heart opening at such a huge, magnificent, and oh, can't think of the word. Okay, huge scale. Yeah. And as you have gone through this journey now with us, you can feel a bit of rawness in your own heart. As it has been moved and shaken from this aspect of life on earth, having witnessed it, having taken a little bit of a journey along with it in your mind. when you go deep into the density of the sorrow of it, and you take the journey and you see the development and you see where it takes you. And now you think of this boy, and you think of why wasn't he allowed to have that, to live with this Irish family. What a sad story. Let's tune in a little bit more to that. This is now the individual story. And the son of the Irish family, who was his brother, he was the one making the journey to go and see him, and he was trying to see the light. He was trying to see the light because it made him more sad to see his brother, so to speak, not recognize him, and to see the development that he took in the institution, and to know that he would have taken a completely different development if he would have been allowed to stay with his family. And so he asked this question to the Irish pastor. I think he was a pastor, and this is the man who helped the institutions improve, who was there for, over 20 years. And he asked him, can you tell me, he asked him, where's the light in this? Haramanaria kutusturu ia barabatakiatata no uri zebra arhan ukwana yashiata toto umharakti imi jebda arhatekti inni. There's so many factors coming in here that cannot so quickly, just like this, like this, like this. So many weavings coming in. We don't know what this soul is that has chosen this kind of development. And here comes the great question always. That is the great question for a mind that has been coming from the 3D, inverted 3D, and organic 3D, that is the 3D together, because it's also coming from the organic 3D. This kind of seeing, this kind of perspective and feeling, and this question of, could it not have been, because there was this milestone where somebody decided this child is not allowed to stay in the family, it has to come back into the institution, and it changed the lives, like black and white, like it's like day and night of it made a difference whether the boy would have stayed with the family for the rest of his life or went back to the institution as he did, and now since then and for the rest of his life stayed there. It's like completely different situation, and changing all the lives involved. It would have changed all the lives involved. And the question is, was that happenstance? Could that not, why could that not have been in this way, in the other way? And is this something that the soul has, so to speak, any power over? Or is this something bad that happened to the boy? On this level, for sure, on the level of the story and the level of the 3D, you can say that is a sad story. And he would have been much happier in the family. That is certainly. So let's go into that a little bit more. We don't know what his soul's intention was for this lifetime. We don't know where his soul comes from. And we don't know yet. It's also not the end of his life yet. But as it is for now, we also don't know, because you cannot take ever the things from face value. Just, okay, this is good, you know, this is good, this is happy, and then this is bad. Although that is how it seems, and that is definitely how it is perceived on this level. However, of course, where we are always coming and looking from is from the soul level, because that is our true self and that is our undying nature. That is where we come from, that is where we go back to, and this is what we are birthing through into consciousness as we speak. Collectively, this is happening. And you don't know the exact intention of this soul and what this soul needed, the codes that would unlock this soul's intentions. And also what, you know, what the difference that it made for everyone else involved. And it is, you know, even though it doesn't seem so, we don't know. It could very well be that it being this way, it has a more powerful impact on the heart structure. It could be. But one thing that is certain, because it is not for us to say individually, okay, what was the difference? Why was the agreement like this and not like that? Because this is all absolutely by soul contract. So this is what we want to now bring forth, is that it is not happenstance, or happenstance, it is not random or incidental, or it could have been this way, it could have been that way, that this boy went back to the institution, even if it should have been by the power only of one person that turned the handle in a different direction, or that made a different choice, out of even a very personal, maybe, affliction. Or it could have been way more complex than that and have to do with politics, and who knows what a web is, you know, how many more players are involved in this story. And they are all, you know, whoever is involved in this story, whoever has put a spice into that cauldron, into that soup, so to speak, it is there's a feedback from it. And it is working. It is an energy that is working in the energy body. That is for certain. And when there is such a connection, when there is such a string, an energy feedback attached involvement, this is part of an agreement. This is all part of a conscious agreement that is made on the conscious level of self, with the other soul aspects on their conscious levels. And those conscious levels, they see the big picture and the greatest outcome. And that is why we say this is all about God waking up to God's self, self-recognition, truth, embodied into more and deeper densities. Because the higher you go, this will be more and more, this will be everything lending itself to that overall principle, to that overall, you could say, intention, desire, not even, no, process. Yes. So because even when everything is falling back to sleep, when the whole universe is in the process of falling asleep, and when then parts of that, galaxies and star systems and parts of the universe go into deep comatose sleep, the deepest darkness, because it's like the farthest away from the grand central sun, and from that unity consciousness, from that scope of consciousness, the farthest away. And then the dream starts to get, at the outskirts, where the own soul cannot be heard anymore, and we fall into such separation, that sense of separation, because even those, let's say, planets that are at the very, 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 farthest away from their own sun, and then from the next central sun, and the next central sun, to the farthest away, and it's freezing cold, and so forth and so forth. They're still part of the whole. They're still not separate. It's just that the connection lines are not perceived anymore. The streams of connection are not perceived, but the streams, they don't truly, completely detach. And so what is with the fallen ones, where it seems like they completely detach? It is yes, and then truth comes back, and they just go back into the neutral light with no memory. But they were not truly ever, in truth, anything other than all that is. That one consciousness, that one light, even though they were so densified that they became completely dark, it was that which appeared dark, or as nothing at all, that you couldn't, because dark, you can't see in the dark. It's because it was so dense, because consciousness was so asleep. In such a, it's like this dream that you have, where you have been dreaming all night, and you don't remember anything. You don't even remember that you dreamt. You were so deeply asleep. So you don't even know what happened, essentially, but you were there. If it is whatever it is, if there is something, even the darkest of the dark, and the most distorted, and the most fallen, it is consciousness, even when it's not conscious, and when it's completely unlike itself. And that too, at some point, can only but, it doesn't re-emerge in that sense, but it just stops to exist as that form, and is just neutral energy. It's just no memory, and one back with all that is, all in time. It's just a matter of time. Okay, I think we have now gone a long way with this, and we can conclude now, come to a closure with it now. Yes, one more thing, and that is, for you that you have observed this story. Oh, you have observed this story and you have observed it has moved you, you could feel the emotions of the brother, you could feel the emotions of the boy, you could feel the Irish pastor. So there was just a lot there. And it also saddened you to see, oh, why could this boy not have stayed with the family? And so this is an opportunity for you as the observer of this story from the outside to also, what does it do with you? You have compassion there. You feel these emotions trigger, come up in you, because there you are sharing a sliver of that. You comprehend in your heart that emotion that they are feeling. And in order to reconcile, to help reconcile for yourself, within yourself, and then also as an observer, you take part, you connect, you have the address, and you see this, you make that connection, and you feel. And as you are then present with those emotions that you feel, you are giving space to those emotions and allowing them to be. And this is your service. This is your part that you then can make of service, make to be of service, and to support that there is space for these emotions to be felt. And that's all there is to do within yourself, and as being of service to those that you are feeling the compassion for. If you think of the boy and you have love in your heart for that boy, that signal, that stream of love will flow to him, to his heart. And also for the family, the Irish family. The moment that you feel them and that you have compassion and you allow yourself to have these emotions, you feel your emotions, you are supporting their allowing themselves to feel those emotions and giving space to those emotions. And that is the expansion of the heart structure. And that allows for more soul to come through. That allows for more access to true self, to higher dimensional self. This story would have been a completely different story, and it would have made a completely different documentary if the boy would have stayed with the family. Now you can see, for example, I want to tell a story about my brother who came to us in, after Chernobyl, and here's how, he came, how he was when he came to us, and here is the development he took, and here's where he is now. Beautiful story, beautiful story. Now compare that to the story you saw. Different, completely different impact. Completely different. It's like a different tree, a different expression. a different impact for all that are watching this. And one thing that comes to me right now is that the story would have been yes, the boy would have also touched many lives where he grew up, and so forth and so forth. But in the way that the story played out now, there are way more strings attached into that story. And these strings, what I'm seeing now is what is happening is these are all strings of woundedness, of wounded heart structure that are attached to this story the way it has unfolded in the process of being transformed, of being broken open. So what is coming through is that the impact for the heart structure, even though it's hard to take it, if you only see it from the level of the story, it's hard to see it this way. But what I'm getting is that there's a way bigger impact to the heart opening as the story is now. And this is something I'm going to have to still going to work with inside of me, that I'm going to have to sit with and see what it does with me. As this also just happened this evening, and I'm just exploring this now. But what I can already tell is that it has way huger impact on the heart structure than than if he would have stayed in the Irish family and he went to them when he was a child. Also, this is a single destiny, this is a single story of a single boy, but there were many stories like his, and it was stories like his that, for example, that brought the attention to these institutions, and that made the progress, that made the opening and the positive development possible that we see today, and bringing over all the Irish volunteers, which is like, wow, so much light. It's like so much opening happening for light to come through. And of course, also in the staff, and yes, especially, yeah. So that's what I'm getting. Um, yeah, you could say a sacrifice for love, for heart opening, for healing in the heart. And again, on the soul level, it doesn't see it as a sacrifice. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, anyone who took this journey with me. Who will take this journey with me, and who just took this journey with me. The more resonance there is, it's like heartstrings, like musical instrument strings. When something resonates, and then it jumps over and it resonates with another, and then that resonance becomes stronger and stronger. Yeah. So the message that's a very, it's very complex, many faceted message, and yet it holds many soul streams, many consciousness streams within it, but it all comes through the heart structure, and that's what it comes down to, is when there is resonance here, there's resonance within the heart structure, within the heart field. And this resonance, this is also, what is in there is an opening to recognition of our true self. Yeah, facilitating that. So thank you so much.